welcome to this Pendulum Swings mini episode. We're going to be talking about Tom and his ultra marathon attempt, and we're going to go into maybe a little bit about what it is and why he does it. So, Tom, talk to us first of all about what is an ultra marathon?
An ultra marathon essentially is any race longer than a marathon. So 30 mile, 50k, 50 mile, 100 mile and beyond, really. They can be road races, they can be trails, mountains. You even get some where it's just repeated laps of the track over like a 12, 24 hour period. So yeah, by definition, it's anything longer than a marathon.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
And what interest, we'll get into the fact that you did your first one recently, but what interested you into doing that in the first place?
I think probably 5 years or so ago, a big podcast fan, Joe Rogan, had a fella called David Goggins on. And before that podcast, I had no idea that ultramarathons really existed. I think growing up, my idea of like the pinnacle of long distance running was the marathon, which at the time seemed like far enough in itself. 26.2 miles is a long way. So I, up until that point, wasn't even aware of ultra marathons, and obviously listening to the people like David Goggins speak about it, what it brings in terms of kind of challenge, that for me felt very, very appealing at that time. And I've done a series of other kind of endurance and ultra endurance events prior to this first 100 miler, and I've just really enjoyed them. There is definitely part of you that you get to see that your day-to-day life just won't show you. And I think the satisfaction and the calmness after finishing them as well is something that I struggle to get from other areas of life. I know my partner notices like a massive difference in me probably the day or two after I've completed it, just in terms of how calm I am and how laid back. I haven't got that get up and go or that urgency to get things done that I usually have from day to day. So there's a number of different factors. I think it's kind of the purest form of endurance as well, and proactive discomfort, which I think for all three of us is something that we really value now. I think the more you can proactively suffer and the more you can proactively put yourself into situations where the natural instinct is to stop or to remove yourself from that situation, when life throws those situations at you, which will inevitably come, you're more prepared for them. So yeah, that's why I've kind of gotten into this space.
Okay. Cool.
Initially, for sure.
So you obviously you've done like 5Ks, 10Ks, marathons, half marathons and stuff like that. You did your ultra marathon, when was it?
It was, good question, 27th of May.
27th of May, so like 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And what was it, where was it based? Tell us a little bit about what the ultra marathon was.
Yeah, so it was the Chester, so GB Ultras is the organisation. This was the Chester 100 mile ultra. So started in Ellesmere Port, made its way down towards Beeston, back over to Frodsham, Widnes, Warrington, back into Frodsham, and then across down to Ellesmere Port. So on a map it does look very intimidating.
Well, I can imagine, yeah.
It's not Chester, it's more of like a Cheshire ultra marathon. So yeah, that was the organisation. But like, just in terms of the culture and the environment and the people that are at these type of events, not why I initially got involved, but certainly a very big reason why I'll continue to participate in these kind of things, because the people who are taking part, the people volunteering, the race organisers, are just by for whatever reason, just seem to be some of the just kind of purest people I've ever met. You find yourself running alongside someone you've never met for 3 hours, having a conversation about things you've done in the past, things you've got planned in the future, your background. You'll find commonalities between you, and it's an experience that I don't think you can get in other kind of walks of life and other environments.
Amazing. It sounds wonderful. Like, it sounds like a lovely connection that you have with people.
Yeah.
So this was your first one?
So this was my first attempt at a 100 miler. So I've done, in April I did a 50 miler. In December last year I did 100k, which is 62 mile. And then before that I've done a number of 100k walks as well. So I suppose that's like a gradual progress. I've always liked the idea of long distance, putting yourself in these tough situations. I did one with Paul a few years back, and then things have happened along the way that got me into running more, and naturally you like these long distance kind of sufferfests and you run now, so you might as well combine the two and start having a crack at doing both together. So yeah, first attempt at a 100 miler, it ended up being my longest ever run, but we didn't quite get there.
Oh right, okay, so we're going to get onto that.
Yeah. You just feel, before we do this, was Tom very humble, doesn't sort of, blow his own trumpet, but I think we will for him. Tom's been doing this for a number of years now. It's not just something, and obviously David Goggins inspired it, mate, but you've not just done it because he's done it. There's been a lot of these sort of endurance events that you've done, and you've raised thousands of pounds for charity as well, close to home, and it's been done for a real good reason. I know obviously you will probably get into the fact that there is a bit of a selfish nature to this, just to prove to yourself that you can do it, but you've helped a lot of people along the way by doing these sorts of events. And yeah, like you say, there's been a gradual build of, like, I think the first year you done walk with Tony from Sean's place.
Yeah.
Then the year later was me, but it was like with the idea to try and do it a little bit quicker or on a short or whatever it was. But every time there's an increase in intensity. And I think the one thing that Tom's always said is that if he's going to fundraise and he's going to take money from someone, with all due respect, people out there doing fundraisers, he's not just going to do a 10k or he's not going to just do a marathon. It's got to be something that you read and think, bloody hell, that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
So he is always trying to push the boundary, and I think it's important to say that that there is a selfish nature to it, but he has helped.
Absolutely.
Raise thousands of pounds, for people as well, by doing these things as well.
Cool. Yeah, no, really good point, Paul. So, Tom, where did you get to then in the race?
So got this attempt, 67 mile.
Okay, what does that look like in kilometres, just so?
It's just shy of 110.
So is that your personal best? So
that's my personal longest run, mate.
Well done, amazing. So I think one of the things that I really, and again, I don't want this to be too much of a love fest, but we do kind of look up to you a little bit, especially with the PT stuff and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that impressed me the most was within 24 hours of doing it, you came onto LinkedIn and you sort of had assessed, what had gone well for you and maybe some of the challenges, and you put it into 3 real, like, sort of lessons. So I just wanted to excavate the lessons a little bit. So what were those lessons that you learned from the run? So
just to summarise them, probably first of all, one was to go fast, go alone, and to go far, go together, which we could probably do a podcast on that on its own. The second was that I believe this, and again, all of these are transferable into everyday life. That's why I kind of went out and made them public on LinkedIn. The other one is that in order for you to stick in the fight and actually commit to something fully, there has to be some sacrifice put into it, almost an investment of your time, effort, maybe some sacrifices where you've maybe given up certain things. And I do think then when things get tough, you have more reason to stay in the fight, so to speak. So they were the first 2, and then the last one, which I think is a really important one, particularly in today's age of social media. The people who don't matter maybe do care, but the people who matter don't care. And I know the people around me, my friends, my partner, my family, they don't love me because I run 100 mile or 100k, or they don't love me because of all the things that I maybe achieve or the things that I aspire to achieve. They love me for who I am and the way I make them feel, or the things that I do for them. And the reaction when I failed to complete the run just kind of cemented that for me, really. You know, Paul came and collected me from a canal bridge in Moor, was it?
Yeah.
In Cheshire somewhere. Me missus was waiting at home for me with a pizza ordered, loads of things to help me out. Obviously my little dog was looking out the window waiting for me to come home all evening, which I really begrudge my partner sending me a picture of, to be honest. That really didn't help matters when I was on that canal on my own, stomping away. So yeah, they were the 3 key lessons, and I think with the first one, you to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I actually heard Nick Bear say this, who's a hybrid athlete, runs a supplement company in America, massive inspiration. He runs ultra marathons and does a lot of amazing things as well. And I think that's really transferable across to life. I think we talk about mental health a lot. If you want to go far and really push yourself out of a dark place, you're best going together with somebody and having people around you. If you want to build a business, yeah, you might get things done quicker. You might get your name done, your branding quicker, your idea, your logo, if you're on your own. But I think if you want to build a solid business with a solid foundation, you're better off doing it with other people as well. And there's loads of other situations where I think you are better off doing things with other people.
We are pack animals, aren't we? We work better as a pack, and and I think we're examples of this, aren't we? Where one person's strength is, you know, you also have a weakness, and then someone rises to fit that weakness and support it with another strength and stuff like that. That's a really, really interesting one. So go on, let's talk about your second sort of lane there. I know you went through them really, but I'll just dig into the second lane a little bit. So the first one was, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to, you know, go far, go with someone else. Your second lane then, just a little bit, talk to us a little bit about that then.
Yeah, I think just with that first one as well, mate, just to make it relevant to why that came about. So with ultra marathons, a lot of people will go as a pair. So they'll go with a friend. There was a brother and sister who actually finished and did really well, or you might even go with your partner if you're both runners. I went on my own. I had no kind of crew at checkpoints. I had the option of having a pacer from 50 mile, which I just didn't explore for whatever reason. I just didn't explore any of those options really. I think again, obviously what Paul, I like to do this as a personal challenge, and I know people have a lot of things going on and a lot of responsibilities, and I don't see it as like an important enough adventure to start grabbing people in from their own lives to come and wait for me at a village or somewhere in Cheshire. That doesn't sit right with me. I'm not criticising people who do that, and it's probably something I'm going to have to look at doing in future, but that they for me were big factors as to why I didn't maybe push on and go further. It was definitely, and I think just to clarify as well, it was definitely a mental challenge that prevented me from continuing rather than a physical one, which I'm happy to admit that as well.
Your second lesson was sacrifice and commitment. So talk to us a little bit about that. Why was that important for you? Why did you learn that?
Yeah, so I think obviously for the relevance of the event itself, I only signed up for the race 6 weeks prior. So the plan this year was to do a 100 miler. I foresaw it being either late summer or autumn time when the event it was that I was going to select, but because Chester just works geographically, it was on a weekend, it was a bank holiday, so I had that extra day. I actually thought I had the week after booked off work as well, which on the Tuesday of the event week, I realised that my holiday request at work hadn't gone through. So I was back in work the Tuesday. But yeah, just geographically, with the timing of the year, the bank holiday, I thought, you know what, that's an opportunity I can't pass by. And you know, worst case scenario, we have a crack at it, and which happened to be the case, we don't get it done. So it was very much a case of continue life as normal, just run long on a Sunday, which definitely moved me closer. As I say, physically, it wasn't actually a problem. Body felt great, was up and about the next day. I think I'd actually done clean the flat the next day, which Soph wasn't best pleased with, but I wanted to get up and start moving again. So it did prepare me physically in a way, but I think if I'd sacrificed more, if I'd devoted a longer period of time to the preparation, when it got to that mile 67 on the canal and you start to ask a few questions of yourself, you're like, hang on, you've pretty much flipped your life upside down for a few weeks for this. You're not just calling home. And I think that played a part, that lack of sacrifice, that lack of commitment for over a period just meant that there wasn't that investment there to hold on and keep just cracking on through the night.
So, let's just dig into that for a second, just because I think it's really important. So it's you did 67 of the 100 miles. It was getting to about 9 o'clock at night, I remember you saying. You've been running for how long?
Close to 15 hours, yeah.
Jesus Christ. And you're running for 15 hours. What went through your head? Obviously, you were saying, you know, if you'd invested more, but what were the actual things that were going through your head? What slowed you down or stopped you?
I think the monotony of it, mate. There was a lot of canal stages, which are lovely for the first few hours. It's very flat, very even. You'll have a few like grassy periods where you do have to take a bit of care with your footing. But by that period, the sun had kind of started to go down. There was no other runners around me at this stage. And you start to think, hang on, I've been running for nearly 15 hours here, potentially. We've still got this to go. We've got it 15, through the night.
Yeah.
I'm on my own. I had a few issues with navigation and my watch, which put further doubt into my mind about getting lost. And you start to create a list of the things that could potentially go wrong. And those very, very quickly, for whatever reason, it might be the lack of time and effort invested, that list of reasons started to become sufficient enough to think, let's go home.
Yeah.
You know, you've got your partner at home, your dog. It's still a reasonable time to give Paul a bell for the pick-me-up.
Yeah.
If you carry on and don't get there, what happens if you get lost at 1 o'clock in the morning? What happens if you roll your ankle? Because some of the trail was not great at all, which added to the day and the event. But you think, I'm going into the night, I've never ran through the night before. I'm on my own, I've got no fixed kind of person to run with, which was a factor all day. I'd attach myself to groups and little couples, but once you get to a checkpoint, if they're ready to go and you're not, they have no pre-agreement to stick with you. So you're looking around for these fellas who you've been running with for a couple of hours and they've gone, which is, you know, that's how it is. And you think, if that happens to me at 3 o'clock in the morning,
yeah.
So you start creating this list.
Yeah.
And then eventually you think, I'm just going to call home. I'm going home.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Cool.
There's too much that could go wrong here. And is the reward really enough for me to risk it? And the answer was clearly no. So I sat on a bench, rang Paul, rang my missus, and I went home.
Oh, right, okay. And I think it's really important, because I want to know that, because I want to know the basis of it. Thank you for being really honest. I mean, it's an incredible achievement. I think everyone else in the world that you knew said this and would try to put themselves in your place and go, I don't know how you get to 67 miles to start with. So, but I know you were sort of really went straight into analysis mode and all that kind of stuff because of the nature of who you are. But I think it was really important to dig into that, because I think when you're really thinking about those states that you're in is the really important thing for being able to go, actually, I've run as far as I've ever run before. These are things I probably need to know next time, and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's really important. Should we get into the third thing then that you learned? So we've talked about, obviously, surrounding yourself with the right people. Like you said, a good partner would have really helped you continue on there.
Yeah.
Second thing was maybe having a bit more invested in the sacrifice bank or whatever. You know, you've got that. You look at your bank account at that 67th man. You're like, oh no, I'm not making a withdrawal now. I'm going to carry on going. What was the third reason?
So
the
people who don't matter maybe do care, but the people who matter don't care.
Yeah.
And it's a general thing. I think we should all probably pay attention to in our own lives anyway, that, you know, my partner doesn't care what I buy her, or whether I'm wearing nice clothes, or if I'm running 100 milers, or if I'm doing well at work. And the same with me mates, they don't really care. It's not those things that actually improve our relationships with the people around us, or I suppose increase the love that they have for us. And I kind of knew this going in anyway, but it was just cemented by the days after, during the day. Obviously people messaging, offering support. You know, I got some really great messages off different people, and even afterwards, you could just sense it was a case of, okay, that's brilliant, you've done the best you've ever done. We're here to help you with the next couple of days getting yourself back up and running again, and we'll be there for you when you want to go again at something like this as well. There was no, like, particularly I suppose your partner's the one you're most worried about having a bit of a negative reaction, just because, you know, although I didn't make massive sacrifices, you know, on the Sundays leading up to the event, I'm out running for 5 hours, 6 hours at a time, and that's our day together, which, you know, I do make some sacrifice. I get up at like 5 o'clock on a Sunday to get out running, to get home and stuff like that, but her reaction was just everything I could have asked for.
Yeah.
Paul's reaction, your reaction, my mum, who really doesn't like these kind of things, or me now. But no, just everyone's reaction was just so positive, and I didn't have any real like emotional negative feelings towards it. I wasn't, probably you sensed this in the car, mate, afterwards. I was very quickly into kind of like analysis mode.
Yeah,
and
I think like for me, like these lessons that you're talking about were probably already being conjured up on the car journey home. And this was probably within 45 minutes or so, or whatever, of calling it a day. I think like the thing for me is that a lot of the things that you've said today that maybe went wrong, for me, are very unlike Tom Molyneux. They're very unlike you. And I think it's very good to see that you can hold your hands up and say, I'm not perfect, it happens to me as well. Because I know a lot of people who know you, I don't think they do this purposely, but they might put you on a little bit of a pedestal, like, Tom's bulletproof, he's invincible, but no, he's a human being too, and he can show his vulnerabilities and his weaknesses.
Certainly in the gym, when we've been working out with him.
There's levels to it, isn't there? But and I think like the thing for me that I noticed, it was like this, the weather.
Oh, it was hot, mate.
So that's another layer. And I think the way you put it was your ability to rationalise and make a plan gone.
Yeah.
But for me, the things that you listed there, I'd be quite confident that Tom would know how to fix that. You know, Tom right now, if there's these problems, you'd probably have a solution or an idea for it. But that strain that you put yourself through, and probably maybe a bit of heat stroke, maybe some dehydration, I don't know what, but your ability had gone to rationalise things.
I think that was one of the phrases I said, that on the phone to Sophie and to yourself, I said my capability to break it down has gone. Whereas usually I go, right, get to the next mile. I think I was 2 miles from a checkpoint. And I knew that, and I still couldn't break that down in my head to go, just get to the next checkpoint. What had gone before, and it was only about 7 o'clock in the evening, I even looked at what time it actually was in the day. I'd kept an eye on the distance and stuff, but it wasn't until 7 in the evening, when I'd already been going for 13 hours, that I actually even took notice of the time. And then you think, shit, I've been running for 15 hours here, and then you start doing math, and the math's not great, it never is. And just that capability to go next checkpoint, and that was my plan leading into it. Even when I started, I saw it as an 8-mile run, because the first checkpoint was 8 mile. I broke it down checkpoint by checkpoint all day, and that served me brilliantly. But then that capability just went out the window, and that's when yeah, it's easy to sit here now and it feels like I'm trying to justify it or rationalise it, but in that moment, for whatever reason, there just wasn't the kind of desire to carry on.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I suppose these lessons and trying to break it down now is to try and ensure that when we get into that situation again, we can put things in place to mean that I get it done next time.
Yeah.
The aim is still to run 100 miles this year.
Absolutely. That led me on to the final point that I was going to ask you. What is your next plan? What's your key?
So I think, having reflected on it, I think the biggest lesson I took from it is that I can do 100 mile, which sounds backwards, but the way my body felt, the way that my body felt in the days after, I know that's not how your body feels when you've pushed it to its limit.
Yeah.
Being able to get up and clean the flat within like 18 hours of finishing.
2 days later, you're squatting the heaviest that you've ever lifted.
Yeah, I was in the gym on the Monday, lifting heavy. I know that's not a body's reaction to being pushed to its limit, so obviously there's a lot more left in the body. It's just now preparing the mind and the emotional side of things to be able to push my body right closer to that limit and, you know, find it potentially. 100 miles this year, mate, is the aim.
Fantastic, I know you're going to do it, mate. I absolutely have no... Well, you know, whether it's the next one or the one after that, it's the mentality you've got.
Yeah.
It just is. It feels like the unstoppable thing. So, listen.
There's probably just a couple of bits, mate. I just want to add, just to provide some kind of perspective to this. I don't have kids. I don't have a demanding job. I do keep myself busy, but I have the freedom to make those commitments on a Sunday morning to go long running. People may listen to this and like you say, I do feel like I get put on a pedestal by some people a lot, which I look at having kids like yourself as far more challenging than preparing to go and run an ultra marathon. There are people out there who are like firefighters, nurses. If I was in their shoes, I wouldn't be doing this. This is my way of actually bringing some discomfort to my life. If I live my life reactively with the kind of autopilot like we've spoken about, it'd be so comfortable. I actually have like a ridiculously comfortable life, and that's why I feel like I kind of need to do these things or I'm never going to be able to get to where I want to get to.
Yeah.
So I think just to provide some perspective on it, if you've got kids, if you're doing a challenging job, you're doing way more than I'm doing by doing this. I suppose this is a nicer probably thing we can unpick and make a podcast out of, but just to put that perspective on it, this isn't as difficult as some of the things people are just having to do in their own lives anyway.
I appreciate you saying that, mate.
So yeah, that'd just be that's how I look at it when people do put it on a pedestal or kind of blow it out of, for me, it gets blown out of proportion quite a lot. And also people who don't run or do ultra endurance or are in that kind of space look at this and think, wow, I'm watching people on YouTube run 250 miles and 200 miles. So again, it's just about perspective. I'd encourage people, you know, what are you taking on board with your media? I could probably list like my 5 to 10 biggest inspirations at the moment, and most people who I kind of spend my time with or my family will have never heard of any of them. And I think it's so important now that we have social media and the internet, you have an option to choose who you're inspired by. And I think people should really open their minds to what's going on out there and what people are achieving. Two British fellas who I'll just mention, if anyone wants to go away. Goodge has just ran across America for Macmillan, and there's a fella called Russ, otherwise known as Hardest Geezer, who's stomping his way across the entire length of Africa at the minute.
Oh, wow.
For the running charity. I see those two fellas and what I'm doing is just so, it's just nothing, and I don't compare myself to them because that's not a positive thing to do, but it puts things into perspective and you go, well, if they can do that, where on that ladder can I climb myself up to as well? So probably just two bits of perspective that I think about when I look at these things.
You're going to be Goggins in like the next 5-10 years, I bet you. You'll be running along Liverpool with your top off, shouting on a camera.
You'll need a tagline. You need to get your own tagline, mate.
Yeah. Listen, I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. It's been a really nice little mini episode, and you know what? We'll put some details in the notes around some of your favourite runners and stuff like that, and anything else that might be really useful for people. But yeah, thanks for your time, mate. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.